Miss, please take a picture with me.
I happily hugged the kid in my arms, but suddenly, a guy from nowhere appeared and hid behind me.
Where did he go?
I'm really sorry for this. His sudden action caught me off guard. By the time I turned around, he had transformed into Poseidon.
Say cheese!
Even though the picture turned out kinda weird, we managed to fool those scary pursuers. Hiya! Do you want to listen to the love story of a mermaid? My dad used to own this aquarium, so I was named Ariel after the famous Disney princess of the sea. But everything changed drastically after he passed away when I turned 16. Fortunately, my dad's best friend, Mr. Tillman, and his daughter Pat welcomed me into their home. He even helped me manage the aquarium my dad left behind. Back to the story of when I met that strange guy at the aquarium. As soon as the man in black left, he introduced himself as Dan. He even offered to repay me for my help.
I'll do anything you want.
Great! My back is about to break, so please help me feed the fish. Thank you! Dan reluctantly took the bucket of fish and warily approached the water tank. Suddenly, Pat arrived. Here you are, Ariel! Isn't that Dan? Wait! Pat quickly grabbed his shirt, which accidentally caused him to lose his balance and fall into the fish tank. Oh crap! Help! The critical situation didn't allow me a moment to think, so I just dived in headfirst to rescue him. Just as he was about to sink to the bottom, I gave him the last bit of air in my mouth and pushed him upwards. Quick, Ariel! I'll take care of him! Go get some help! I quickly ran away, and only 5 minutes later, I returned with some helpers, but oddly, there was no one there. Huh? Where did Pat take him? In the end, I tiredly went back home alone. As soon as I got home, Mr. Tillman excitedly showed me an invitation card.
Look, Ariel, we're invited to the Burson's dinner.
It took me a moment to remember that Mr. Burson was our town mayor, but why was such a powerful family interested in us?
It was all thanks to Pat for saving Dan, the only son of the Burson's family.
Dan? The one I jumped in to save? Ariel, I didn't mean to steal your credit. It's just... It turned out that Pat had a crush on Dan ever since they first met on his father's inauguration day. When he woke up, because he was so shaken, Pat reassured him that she had saved him. Even so, you shouldn't have lied. Please, Ariel, you don't like Dan the way I do. For me, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Please help me. While I was still disturbed, Mr. Tillman sadly sat down on the table.
Stop it, Pat. Even though we've been taking care of Ariel for 4 years, you shouldn't bother her like that.
Ugh, when he put it like that, suddenly it didn't matter who saved Dan. He was safe after all. I decided to let Pat take my credit. The next day, we went to Burson's mansion together for dinner. Soon, my husband will be away to open a fair to promote the town. Pat, do you want to stay here with me during that time? Maybe you and Dan will get closer after this. Suddenly, Dan turned to me.
It'll be only me and my mom here. I'm afraid Pat might be bored. How about you stay here with us too?
Me? Ouch!
Yep, you saved me from bad guys at the aquarium, so I want to thank you too.
With the enthusiasm of Dan and his mother, I hesitantly agreed. The next morning, after Pat and I temporarily moved in with the Bursons, Dan invited us to spend some leisure time in his garden. Just so you know, I'm the best at drawing portraits.
Wow, let's have a friendly competition then. Ariel, can you model for us?
In just an hour, they finished and called me over to look. Pat's drawing is so beautiful. But Dan, why do I have a smudge on my nose in your painting?
'Cause you look exactly like that.
Then he smeared a red stain on my nose. Not backing down, I immediately wiped the color from the painting board and put it on his face. That looks like you more. We kept splashing colors on each other until I tripped and fell into his lap. Our eyes met for a second. Will you two stop? Pat's irritated voice quickly separated me and Dan. Then she quickly dragged me back to my room. Did you do that on purpose? Panicked, I held her hand and promised to never see Dan alone again, but she pushed my hand away. While doing so, she accidentally pushed the fish tank next to me to the floor. What the hell? Don't you know that I'm allergic to— Immediately, she covered her mouth as if she had just blurted out a secret. She immediately pushed me out of the room. You better keep your promise. That kept me thinking, could Pat be allergic to salt water? The next day, Dan took us to the aquarium for a surprise.
Ladies, I've just bought moonfish to display here. It'd definitely attract more customers.
While Pat was fervently praising his idea, I was extremely furious. Why would you keep such rare fish imprisoned? They belong to the sea. Shut up, Ariel! You know nothing! Dan just wants to help this boring aquarium! If my dad was still alive, he would never have agreed to this. I angrily opposed her, causing the atmosphere between us to become even more tense. Seeing that, Dan quickly intervened.
Actually, Ariel is right. Don't worry, I'll reconsider it.
It made Pat even angrier. When I walked past her, she even tripped me and almost made me fall into the fish tank. Dan pulled me back in time and... Wow, why was my heart beating so fast? All of a sudden, he held his head in pain. Pat quickly pushed me away from him. Why are you so careless? Then she took him away, leaving me standing there alone thinking about the kiss just now. After that, I took a quick shower and hoped that I could wash away my feelings for Dan. When I came out, I saw Pat in my room. Pat, what are you doing? I just want to apologize for this afternoon. Please don't be mad at me. I beamed happily. I knew our friendship wouldn't be broken so easily. I gotta bounce now. See ya, Ariel. Knowing that we had made up, I happily went to bed. Wait, where was the necklace I left here earlier? It's my dad's last memento. I looked for it for the whole night until...
Ariel, I need to tell you something.
I didn't notice that Dan was behind me and it was already morning. I turned around and he panicked when he saw my face.
Did you sleep at all?
No, I'm looking for a necklace. Before I could finish, Dan's mother and Pat hastily arrived and yelled in panic. Dan, we have a big problem. The oxygen generator in the aquarium was broken. This necklace was found inside.
Ariel, isn't that yours? Why could you ruin everything the Burson family prepared?
What? How did it get stuck in there? I lost it last night. But no matter how I explained it, no one believed me except Dan.
I saw her looking for that necklace all night. Maybe.
You don't need to defend her. She must take responsibility for her actions.
So, I was immediately kicked out by Pat and Mrs. Burson. In the taxi back home, I tried to remember what happened last night. That's it. Pat must have dived in to break the oxygen generator. That's why she got the rash. Having understood everything, I was shocked that she was willing to go that far to kick me out of the Burson house. I must show everyone her true face. That night, I called Pat to the beach and asked Dan to take his mother to a nearby place. As soon as she saw me, Pat immediately put on a fake smile.
The Bursons decided to forgive you. You rolled in with me after all.
You can stop pretending, Pat. I already know you're the real culprit. At first, she was shocked to hear that, but soon she burst out laughing and changed her attitude immediately.
You think Mrs. Burson will believe you, or the person who saved her son?
Aren't you ashamed? We've been living together for 4 years like a family.
You think my dad and I really want to live with you?
She snickered and said that her dad adopted me, only because he wanted to take over my dad's aquarium. Unbelievable. I angrily pushed her towards the sea.
Ouch, you idiot! Don't you know I'm allergic to salt water?
Just as Pat was about to attack me, Dan stopped her. Mrs. Burson also sent her man to arrest that lying snake.
I've always trusted you because I thought you saved me. I didn't expect you to be full of poop.
After that, Pat was sued by the Bursons for vandalism and was even forbidden to go near them. To compensate me, Dan's mother hired a lawyer to reclaim my right of the aquarium from Mr. Tillman. Dan also agreed to return the moonfish back to the sea. Since then, my relationship with him has also gone up a notch. I sneaked out into the living room. A strange man entered, carrying a mini Gucci bag. As soon as he gave it to my mother, I grabbed his leg and begged.
Dad, I want it too!
He startled and jumped back.
This is...
My mother quickly hugged me. This is my daughter, and of course, she will be yours in the future. That man quickly ran away before hearing any words from her. Thank you for being here to hear the strange story of mine, Megan, 17 years old. As you can see, my mother was a gold digger, a man dating her, and I accidentally got caught up in her scheme. Here, honey, this is your favorite bag. As I grew older, I gradually became aware of her career. Come on, I just want to make money to raise you. Huh? She called it making money? So I decided to study fashion design at Cornell University and work part-time at the same time to pay for it. Hey, it wasn't arrogant, but I was really talented. In a competition organized by my university, just before it started, I pulled the curtain off my design and discovered it had been cut off. It was definitely due to Helen, my rival. Looking at the way she's smiling, so smug. After calming down, I used the last bit of materials to fix that dress. Fortunately, the show went smoothly. Finally, after my efforts, I won the first prize. Oh my god! I was awarded by Mr. Gordon, the director of a famous fashion company in New York.
Congratulations, talented girl. I wish my useless son was in the same league as you.
I followed his gaze and realized it was Josh Gordon, his son and the only heir. I tried to smile to break the awkward atmosphere. After saying goodbye to Mr. Gordon and Josh, I quickly ran to the bus stop. Please don't be late for work. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out. Megan, you don't deserve that trophy, loser. Give it to me now. Turns out it was Helen. Since when did it become hers? Before I could reply, Helen approached me and wanted to take it from me. I swung the bag at her several times, but she dodged it all. Jeez, Helen got my bag. Suddenly, from afar, a voice shouted,
Leave her alone!
It was Josh. When Helen heard that, she panicked and suddenly let go of it. The bag followed inertia and it hit my head. When Josh got there, my head was swollen because of the trophy in it.
Are you alright?
Turns out he overheard Helen's phone call about her plan to steal my trophy, so Josh got worried and ran to help me. After that, I offered him a cup of coffee as my thanks. Unexpectedly, he also had the same design hobby as me. Did I meet my destiny? Since then, Josh regularly came to my workplace, asked me for lunch, and further discussed the designs. Soon, we were officially a couple. One day, Josh drove me home after an outing. Of course, the scene of me getting out of Josh's luxury black Bugatti was seen by my mom. After Josh left, she pulled my hand. Where did you catch this big fish? Oh my gosh, it started again. Oh no. Hold him tight, my darling. From that day, my mom always tried to strike up a conversation with Josh whenever seeing him. My beloved son-in-law. I heard the steak at Gallagher's Steakhouse tastes so good. Shall we? Oh look, her eyes were like a child asking for a gift. For fear of losing Josh, I couldn't tell him the truth about my gold digger mom. During the meal, she consecutively ordered the most expensive dishes in the restaurant and devoured them. Sometimes my mom pushed food towards me. Eat this, Megan. You're so skinny these days. What? Look at my belly fat. Before I could reply, she quickly interrupted. Poor her, she just wants to earn more recently. Why does she lift that LV bag so much? I didn't expect that she even wanted to take money from my boyfriend. I immediately stepped on my mother's foot as a warning. However, everything went according to her plan.
Then let me buy it for you. Don't work too hard anymore.
When my mother heard that, she was overjoyed. I could see her wicked smile. While waiting for Josh to come to pick us up, I warned her. Mom, don't even think about asking for gifts from him. I only want the best for you. Do you like working hard to earn some meager money? At that time, Josh drove up, and my mom suddenly slipped and dropped the phone in her hand, so it got crushed by the wheel of Josh's car. She began to cry. Oh no, I had to save up for 3 years to buy it. Again. I quickly pretended to bend down to comfort her with an angry look. Mom, stop now. Don't ruin my business. Suddenly, Josh bowed his head apologetically.
I was too careless. Let me buy you a new phone.
My mom waved her hand to show no need, but at the same time, she cried louder. You don't have to do that. I can buy a new one for her myself. After that, I took a taxi to take her home because I was afraid she would continue that play in front of Josh. The next day, as I was finishing up the design for my graduation project, my mother suddenly walked in with a bunch of luxury bags in her hands that were given by Josh. Not only that, but she also took out a new iPhone 14 to record. Being able to capture the moment when you're intently designing, it's really great. Unexpectedly, Josh even gave my mom a brand new phone. I immediately called him to apologize and promised to make money back.
Just a little gift. Moreover, it's my fault.
However, the gifts were increasing day by day. My mother jumped as soon as she saw them, but I felt so guilty. Suddenly, my mother grabbed me by the shoulder. Should we ask him for an extra car? Oh wait, what about a mansion? I looked at my mother in shock. Everything would go too far. I knew it was time to clear things up with Josh. I rushed to the company to find Josh, but the secretary said he was doing his debut collection show. How come he never mentioned it? At that moment, I received a call from my mom. That darn Josh! I thought I could fool him, but all the gifts he gave were fake. What the heck is going on? In the end, we were the ones who were fooled? Calm down, Mom. Let's meet him, then we can talk. Immediately, my mother asked where Josh was. I won't leave him alone. Before I could speak, she hung up. I rushed to Josh's fashion show, hoping my mom hadn't overdone it. We cheated him first anyway. As soon as we arrived, my mom and I immediately recognized. Those are my designs. Why was Helen standing on stage with him? As soon as Josh saw me, he hurriedly waved for security. Right after that, we were dragged out. Helen looked at me sarcastically. Even though I didn't win the competition, wasn't I the one to get glory? Turns out Josh hired Helen to trouble me in the first place so he could get close to me and she could work at his company. All I could do was go home angry and lock myself in my room. After a while, my mom worried, came into the room to comfort me. That darn Josh tricked me! It turned out that Josh had flattered her to have a chance to take my designs from my mom. He would make me famous. I shouldn't have let her get involved in this from the start. I'm really sorry. I just thought it could help you fulfill your dream. At this moment, her phone vibrated, and she angrily threw it away. Just looking at this phone reminds me of... Right! There was a video of me drawing my graduation project in it. While my mother was still depressed, I hurriedly grabbed her phone and looked up information about Josh's collection launch press conference. Here it is! The press conference is going on! It's still in time! We didn't hesitate to bring the evidence straight there. Everything is exposed, Josh! After that event, Josh's theft of my design made the headlines, and Mr. Gordon immediately kicked him out of the company. My mother was also very apologetic. She decided to donate all the gifts she received and earn money by herself. The best part is that the design Josh stole from me had been well received by the public.
When I was sitting in the car and ready to have a rest after a long day, suddenly a motorbike passed by and threw tomatoes directly at my window. The biker also held up a piece of paper with the words, "Traitor, quit singing." Ugh, not again. I reached out and threw my high heel at their helmet and left a satisfactory long crack in it. If I see you again, I'll leave more than a crack on your head. No! In the heat of the moment, I forgot that the heel I just threw was in Versace's latest collection. Damn it! Hi, I'm Kaylin, and I'm a famous superstar with a huge fan base. However, I couldn't be fully happy because my mom had serious heart problems. Not to mention, although you could see me anywhere, on posters, billboards, flyers, and even television, the more famous I became, the bigger my anti-fan base grew. They hated me ever since I started singing pop music and dropped the country genre. Once, when I was walking through the company's emergency exit, I found an anti-fan who was writing betrayal on the wall. As fast as lightning, I used the few moves I learned from an action movie I was in to lock their arms and press them to the wall. Who told you to do this? Tell me. He cried and then knelt down begging for mercy. He confessed that he belonged to an anti-fan group of mine on Twitter. They said I was ungrateful to my fans, so he just went along and hated me for fun. It sounded so stupid. Because of them, malicious rumors about me appeared more and more, which made the company's stock drop, and we all fell into troubles. I must join that group to find out who was trying to destroy me. Following his instruction, I joined the chat group and was quickly invited to a meeting. Good. It would be a golden opportunity for me to find out who was slandering me. I quickly disguised myself and went to my own anti-fan club meeting. But to my surprise, there were very few members, and they were all wearing masks which resembled my face with creepy scribbles on them. With that, I could never find out their true identities. When I was about to enter the room, suddenly a muscular guy in a leather jacket and a cracked black helmet burst in. It was the biker who threw tomatoes at me. While he was approaching someone, I rushed to grab his hand and beat him up. The girl he was about to approach saw that and ran away in panic. Everyone else in the cafe also ran away from that messy situation. Veronica, don't leave. You're the one who's not allowed to leave. I tried to hold him down as hard as I could while he tried to push me away. After a while of fighting, both of us got tired, so we decided to calmly sit down and talk. Why did you throw tomatoes at me? I didn't throw anything at you. I took off my disguise, tossed my hair back, and flashed my shiniest smile. I was sure he would be shocked to see his victim again, but he just looked at me strangely. So, who are you? You really don't know who I am? The man sighed and introduced himself as Austin, a doctor. He came to bring his sister Veronica home. She stole his bike and had been neglecting school to join some silly group. If that was true, it meant his sister was the one who threw the tomatoes at me. I must get her information then. I lied that I was in the same situation as him by weeping about how much I suffered when my little sister also ran away, and implied that maybe she could be in the same group as Veronica. Ha! Did you see my top-notch acting? Austin totally fell for it and promised to take me home to see his sister. However, when we got back to his house, she wasn't there. While Austin left to answer a call, I sneaked into Veronica's room. Everything in there shocked me. She was a real anti-fan of mine. Her room was full of my pictures used for darts practice. I must find her to ask about all this. Austin quickly reappeared and told me, "Looks like she and her boyfriend are not here." It turned out that they often stole Austin's bike, which was why I mistook them for Austin. He then gave me his number and promised to contact me when his sister got home. He was so nice that, thanks to him, I felt a bit more reassured. Days later, I visited my mom in the hospital. She wanted to go outside for some fresh air, but I persuaded her not to because she was weak, and it could be dangerous if her heart suddenly failed. But she kept begging me, "Please, honey. Just for a while." At her insistence, I had to agree. But what I fear happened after a while. She had a sharp pain in her chest and shouted, "Ugh, Mommy!" My mom fell to the ground and it drained all the blood from my face. I was about to carry her back when suddenly a hand caught my mom. It was Austin. He quickly carried her on his shoulders and ran inside the hospital. Fortunately, my mom was brought into the ER in time. If it wasn't for Austin, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life. When all had calmed down, Austin turned to me. "I have talked to Mrs. Lopez numerous times. She's a nice lady. She told me she had a famous daughter and wanted us to get married." I blushed and reintroduced him to my true identity. After that day, I saw him more often at the hospital. It was so adorable seeing how Austin was so polite and gentle to his patients and my mom. One day, I found out that Austin was secretly paying for my mom's hospital bills. I was so touched and promised to pay him back ASAP, but he just smiled and replied, "You don't need to worry about that. I only want to know one thing." With that, he kissed my cheek and whispered, "I like you, Kaylin. Do you want to go out with me?" I agreed and hugged him happily. At that exact moment, there came a startled scream. Veronica stood in front of us and shouted loudly, "What the hell is going on here?" Then she ran away in a panic. Austin chased Veronica and I immediately ran after them. "Veronica, stop!" The girl sulked and ran to the railing, which was extremely dangerous. She burst into tears and shouted, "I hate you because all you care about is work. Now you even date that ungrateful traitor." Austin tried to reassure his sister, but she refused to listen. Why does everyone turn their back on me? It turns out Austin was constantly busy with work and could rarely spend time with his sister. As for me, Veronica used to be a big fan of mine, but after learning that I gave up on the country genre, she felt betrayed. Therefore, the fact that Austin and I fell in love became a huge shock for her. Sensing the danger, I quietly sneaked behind her back, through another passage to protect her. After hearing Veronica's confession, Austin apologized and promised to spend more time with his sister. However, as she hesitantly walked towards her brother, she suddenly tripped and fell backwards. I quickly rushed over and pushed her forward. We fell hard to the ground, but luckily we were both safe and sound. "Veronica, are you okay? See, I never abandoned my fans." The girl burst into tears and hugged me tightly. After that, I explained to Veronica about my musical direction. She also apologized for doing so many bad things that negatively affected my life. The next day, after hearing my story, the company made a surprise decision to let me release an album of both genres. The anti-group quickly disappeared without a trace, and no one bothered me anymore. My relationship with Veronica and Austin is also gradually getting better. She's no longer angry when she sees her brother dating me. On the contrary, she's been showing it off to everyone.